Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at taking the text and breaking it apart. And so here's our text, and we're going to go up to type, and we're going to use the command convert to shape. So what we've done here is the text is still vector, but it's no longer editable as text. And what we've converted it to is a series of vector shapes. So if I grab my path selection tool, I can click on each of the letters and manipulate them independently, and you'll see the lines and nodes that have made up the shapes. In addition to that, I can grab the direct selection tool and I can select individual nodes that make up the shapes and modify them as well. Okay, so the idea here is that I can take the text, break it apart, turn it into artwork, and then begin to manipulate the individual nodes of the shape. Let's save that. And we're going to call this type exercise 3. Let's go back and open up type exercise 2. And what I want to do now is work with the text and show you some layer styles. So layer styles can be applied to shapes, to anything that's isolated on transparent pixels. I like to introduce layer styles when I work with text because they kind of work together. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to apply the layer styles. That's the effects button. First, we have our blending options. And these blending options allow us to do things like pass certain behaviors of the text down through the blending options, through the different types of layer styles. Let's start with something simple. I'm going to add drop shadow. So I'm going to click on drop shadow, and then I have to click on the text here, and you'll see that it's applied a drop shadow to the text, and I can adjust the size, the spread, the distance of the shadow from the object, the angle of the shadow, and I can make the text, the shadow softer or harder, and make something that's very interesting. In addition to that, I can do other things. Let's take a bevel and emboss. I'm going to click on the bevel and emboss. I'm going to change the depth of that bevel and the size of the bevel appropriately. And you'll see there that the text has that beveled surface. There's a lot of options in here, and we're not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to go through this top section here. And then later on, in the advanced portion of the class, we'll go through some of the more sections. So here's the outer bevel tool, inner bevel, emboss, pillow emboss, stroke emboss. I'm going to set it back to inner bevel. And so with that inner bevel, I can choose how hard or soft that is, whether it's chiseled hard or soft, and the appropriate amount for the bevel. So that's one way to modify or create a layer style. So these layer styles you can do very cool things with layer styles, and you can make some very interesting art with layer styles. And on the deep end, you can do things like create textures like neon and stone. On the simple end, you can do things like just add a bevel and a drop shadow, which is what we did here. I'm going to click OK. And so let's save that. File, save as. This will be type EXER4. So continuing in the same vein, I'm going to take the effects. Now, if I want to activate the effects panel again, I can double click and activate the effects, or I can turn each individual effect on and off. And I can double click on effects to apply additional effects. What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to drop all the effects off, drag them into the trash, and start over. I'm going to grab the effects tool, and this time let's do something different. Let's add a stroke. I'm going to add a stroke to the text, and I can choose what color the stroke is and what size the stroke is, and I can position the stroke on the inside, the outside, or the center. I'm going to leave it on the outside. I can make the stroke a solid color or a gradient. I'm going to make it a gradient, and I'm going to mix a gradient let's mix a gradient. I'm going to click into the banded area and create a mixed gradient. So what I'm going to do is the top stops are for transparency. The bottom stops are for color. I'll click on the bottom stop, click on the color, choose the color I want. Let's say I want to make a something that's a little pink here. And then on the other end, I can click, click here. On the other end, I can click and choose another color. And then if I want to add additional stops, I can click anywhere underneath to add in additional stops and choose additional colors. Okay, and so once I've created my gradient, I can name it and click new, and it'll be added to the gradients. So one of the things about Photoshop is that lots of times what they expect you to do is create your own element. So what we've done here is we've mixed our own custom gradient. I can drag this to change where the colors move inside of here, and then the diamond is the point where the color transitions, the midpoint where the color transitions into the other color. And I'll click OK. And what I've done here is I've created a text with a stroke, and I loaded a gradient into the stroke. Let's go down and let's look at the inner shadow. I'm going to apply an inner shadow, and what that's going to do is put a shadow on the inside of the text. So I have something that looks like this, and I'm just going to adjust the stroke and the size until it looks like something that's interesting to me. And what I've done here, I'm going to click OK, is I've done another type effect using layer styles. And so you can explore those and try different things and create some very interesting, attractive text usages.